If Iran don't make a deal in 48 hours, all hell is going to break loose. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Iran thinks they control the strait. They think they have leverage, but we know exactly what they're doing. They're playing games with global oil, with the economy, with security, and we're not going to let that happen. We have the power, the strongest military, the best technology, far beyond anyone. Now they're threatening the entire region, saying everything will turn into chaos. But here's the truth. They understand strength, and we've shown strength like never before. We can end this very fast. Maybe days, maybe weeks. Deal or no deal, it doesn't matter, because in the end, we control what happens next.
Good evening. It's being hailed one of the most daring search and rescue operations in US history. A missing American airman has been found alive in Iran after his fighter jet was shot out of the sky. President Donald Trump says the crew member was in treacherous mountains being hunted down by enemies who were getting closer by the hour.
Pictures from Iranian TV said to show a group of armed men trying to capture an American crew member from a downed military jet. He will be found, this man says. Don't worry. He was, but not by them. The airman who had a bounty on his head, rescued by US forces in a mission Donald Trump has hailed miraculous. At my direction, the US military sent dozens of aircraft armed with the most lethal weapons in the world to retrieve him. He sustained injuries, but he will be just fine, the US president posted online. The successful operation, a race against the clock as time ticks on another deadline set by Donald Trump. I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait. Time is running out, 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. The US president sharing video of intense strikes in Tehran, which he claims wiped out many of Iran's military leaders. If escalation continues, the entire region will turn into hell. Israel isn't deterred, claiming responsibility for an attack on Iranian petrochemical plants, which reportedly killed at least 5 people. I promised you that we would continue to crush the terrorist regime in Tehran, and that is exactly what we are doing, Benjamin Netanyahu says. Iran, meanwhile, is sounding the alarm on US-Israeli strikes close to its nuclear facilities. The area around one power plant has been targeted 4 times. The country's foreign minister warns that poses a serious risk of radiological release, while the UN's atomic watchdog says it is deeply concerned. Iran still has the capacity to fight back. State television says these missiles were headed for Israel. There were direct hits, residential buildings damaged, and apartments left in ruins. As the conflict drags on, opposition to it is growing. An anti-war rally in Tel Aviv saw 10 people arrested as protesters and police faced off. Domestic turmoil as the region braces for whatever comes next.
Well, John Paul Gonzo is here with me now in the studio for more on this remarkable rescue. JP, just how did this all unfold?
Well, Georgie, it lasted several hours and incredible details are emerging about it. It's being reported that after he ejected, that airman got himself into a mountain crevice in southern Iran and activated his emergency beacon. Not only was he trying to stay alive, he was also attempting to evade capture. This search is being described as needle in the haystack stuff. As US forces were scouring rugged terrain to find him, so too were Iranians who were hunting him as well. Fox News is reporting there was fighting on the ground and there was gunfire during the rescue operation. Donald Trump says no Americans were killed, but it's unclear yet whether any Iranians were. It's also claimed the CIA ran a deception campaign, basically spreading word inside Iran that US forces had already found that missing crew member and were evacuating him, confusing Iranian authorities. As for that airman who was rescued, President Trump says he was injured, but he will be just fine. The other person on board the fighter jet was rescued yesterday. Georgie, a successful military operation for the US, but an expensive one with at least 2 planes lost. It's unclear yet at this stage how this military mission will impact the rest of the war.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Jake.
Alert, the Pentagon says we're entering the most decisive hours of the war as the Iranians are running out of time and firepower. This bombing tempo has never been seen in the history of warfare.
Just last night, we had 200 dynamic strikes alone. A dynamic target is one that changes while you're in the air because of improved intelligence. 200 dynamic strikes alone, in addition to the pre-planned targets. If Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff, and he does not back down. You can ask Khomeini about that.
Tonight, the air campaign's maximizing time in the sky. Aircraft are refueling midair and collecting intel in real time, adding new targets to their hit list by the second. The Air Force officially achieving full battle space dominance. Last night, we hit the mother lode.
Overnight, the United States hit an Iranian ammunition depot with 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs. President Trump took to Truth Social to release some video in the aftermath of these strikes. You can see a massive fireball there rising from the Iranian horizon.
Last night's strike may have changed the course of the war because immediately afterwards, Iran's president came out and announced he wanted an immediate ceasefire, and the market rallied 3%. Check your 401k. That bunker buster dropped in the same city that hosts Iran's main nuke site and home to one of their biggest underground missile cities, tunnels that stretch for miles and miles. We may have just knocked out whatever Iran was secretly stockpiling. The Pentagon says we're hitting some real high-value targets.
Together, we continue to deliver precision strikes against key manufacturing nodes, component storage sites, research facilities deep within Iranian territory. We continue to prosecute our campaign against our defense industrial base at scale. This includes factories, warehouses, nuclear weapons research and development labs, and the associated infrastructure required for Iran to reconstitute its combat capability.
The IDF says in 24 hours, 100% of the targets that they chose before the war will be destroyed. So when Israel's saying they're about to run out of targets, this thing has to be almost over. And tonight, it's open season on their nuke labs and R&D. In the next 48 hours, the biggest bombs are on the way.
Given the increase in air superiority, we've successfully started to conduct the first overland B-52 missions, which allow us, as we've said before, to continue to get on top of the enemy.
B-52s conducting dynamic strikes sends a signal to the enemy and to the world that the U.S. military has achieved the highest ceiling of air supremacy, giving the administration maximum leverage for diplomacy. This is like punching the enemy in the face while they're handcuffed.
It's like, oh, they're putting up a good fight. They're not putting up a fight. They're not even shooting at us, okay? They are roaming the skies over Tehran. They're not even being shot at because their equipment's been totally decimated. They have nothing to shoot. They have no Navy. They have no anything. And just think about this. They have no Navy. They have no military. They have no nothing. They're losing. They admit they're losing. They're begging to make a deal. And if you read the fake New York Times, a corrupt newspaper, where I'm suing them and I think I should do very well, but you would almost think, who's winning?
Yesterday, the Iranians launched the lowest number of missiles and drones since the start of the war. And every day that our bombers fly unchallenged, the regime loses power.
They will go underground, but we will find them. We recently destroyed another one of their command bunkers. Leaders forced to flee. No water, no power, no oxygen, no command and control. Their faith in their caves diminishing. Our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations amongst senior leaders.
The Ayatollah's long been able to sustain loyalty with cash, kickbacks, bid rigging, and perks. But with bunker busters collapsing their hideouts, their banks being blown up, we're starting to see cracks. The problem's Iran's top brass is hiding with no phones, no Wi-Fi, and they can't make a decision on a deal because if they do, they'll get eliminated. They can't meet. And the guys negotiating the deal can't get sign-off from the guys underground. So it's like negotiating with an alcoholic who took the keys to the wrong car. One way or the other, the president says he's in control and sticking to the timeline.
I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3, we're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. We, as you probably read or wrote, we knocked out. Excuse me.
Pardon me for interrupting. The U.S. will be gone or done with the war in 2
I think
weeks?
with 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
The president also told the New York Post that, quote, we're obliterating the ish out of them right now. It's total obliteration. Offensively, we're decimating the mullahs, and defensively, the alliance has been vigilant, intercepting missiles and drones at a rate close to 100%. Epic Furies being called Desert Storm on steroids. We have fewer sorties in the air than we did during the Gulf War, but we're hitting targets at a higher rate than ever before. Almost 100% of our munitions are precision guided. In 1990, that number was just 10%. And there isn't anything stopping our pilots.
The 3 Air Force captains shot down by Kuwaiti-friendly fire early in the fight weeks ago. They never left the theater. All dropped bombs over Tehran last night.
The Secretary of War also revealed today that he went on his own covert mission to visit the men and women behind Epic Fury. Listen.
I witnessed lethality. I met a junior airman as the sun was going down and a chill was setting on the tarmac, who, when asked what they needed, she simply looked up at me with a sly smile on her face and said, "More bombs, sir, and bigger bombs. We will happily oblige her."
Morale was sky high everywhere.
I asked each young American, "What do you need?" And nobody said better equipment. Nobody said more comfortable living conditions. Nobody said send me home. Well, of course, eventually we want all those things. They do too. But what those Americans said to me, young and old, officer and NCO, male and female, black and white, was, let's finish the mission. Get us even more bombs, bigger bombs, more targets. Let us finish this.
CENTCOM Commander Brad Cooper also took a trip out to meet with air defense operators. Listen to this.
I'm wishing you all the best. I think of you every day and with a lot of pride. So thanks for what you're doing. I really appreciate it and couldn't be prouder. I met with our service members who are operating the most sophisticated and largest active air defense umbrella in the world right here in the Middle East to defend against Iran's indiscriminate missile and drone attacks. After witnessing the absolute professionalism, discipline, and dedication of our men and women in uniform supporting Operation Epic Fury, I just could not be prouder.
Our warfighters are getting more backup. The USS Tripoli's in position, and the 1st Marine Regiment on board has been running drills around the clock. The Tripoli got its name from when Thomas Jefferson sent the Navy to Libya to battle the Barbary pirates back in 1805. First time the American flag was raised over foreign soil. The USS Boxer is also on its way. The 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit's on deck as F-35 Lightnings take off from that ship. And the USS George H.W. Bush just departed too, sailing towards the Middle East. We remember how that ship got its name, Poppy. The carrier stacked with 9 aircraft squadrons, 3 guided missile destroyers, and has over 5,000 sailors and military personnel on board. And on top of that, one of our Ohio-class cruise missile submarines was just seen conducting a personnel transfer in the Bay of Gibraltar. These subs can carry over 150 Tomahawk cruise missiles and dozens of Navy SEALs. The commander-in-chief has options.
There's been lots of media coverage that suggested a ground invasion is imminent. What other purposes might the soldiers and the Marines who have been deployed over to the Middle East serve in this conflict?
Military 101. Don't tell your enemy what you're willing to do or not do, and don't tell your enemy when you're willing to stop, especially an enemy that likes to hide in bunkers and try to hoard their missiles and hope you'll wait you out.
Special forces like the Rangers and the SEALs are already in position, just awaiting orders. Seizing Iran's uranium would require one of the largest raids in military history, and it would be like something straight out of Hollywood. Chinooks would dispatch from our ships. An entire battalion of troops with specialist units would come in and secure a perimeter around Iran's nuke sites. And in the skies, our air assets would provide cover for our troops on the ground as they carry out containers of uranium from under the rubble. America's Joint Special Ops Command has spent years wargaming this. They prepared scenarios of going into Pakistan to seize their nuclear material. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, they've practiced entering deep into underground labs. There's never been an elite fighting unit more prepared for this than us. And we wish our allies were this prepared. France has been banning our planes from flying in their airspace. Spain being prude with its bases. And the British Royal Navy still hasn't left port.
A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others, and yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them.
Trump told NATO he wouldn't forget, and he hasn't. He's telling the Europeans to get their own oil from the Strait. He says this, quote, all those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the United States. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait. Just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore. Just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Trump's prioritizing destroying Iran's military, its military-industrial complex, regime leadership, and controlling their nuke programs. The Strait has to be opened, but it's secondary. You can't put American commandos and battleships on the islands and on the coastline until you've completely eliminated every target that could threaten that operation. The president's goading allies to get off the sidelines if their economies can't survive a 4-week supply shock.
We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the Strait and the Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that.
The president believes that once the war is wrapped up, the Strait will eventually open, one way or the other, by force, by peace deal, or by ally. We're already seeing an uptick in tanker travel just in the past 24 hours. Look at that. The president says the prices will come down for summer driving season, hopefully.
Gas prices, today they hit $4.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down.
One of Wall Street's savviest CEOs, Jamie Dimon, tells Fox the mission comes first, the markets second.
Markets are unpredictable, and it's hard for me to tell you exactly what, but I think they're just looking at, is there a chance something can go wrong? Now, we should all hope nothing goes wrong. We should all hope that these bad people are, that we win this thing and clean up the straits and that Iran is no longer a threat to everybody. The markets will be concerned until it's over. But I think it's very important. It's much more important that this be successfully completed than what the market does.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, where we explore the craziest stories, wild ideas, and things you won't believe are real. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Let's jump right in. The Trump administration is sending more military forces to the Middle East, while at the same time claiming Iran has asked for a ceasefire, a claim Iranian officials say is not true. Meanwhile, 1 month into the war, President Trump is scheduled to address the nation later this evening. He's expected to provide an update on the war effort and reiterate why he believes it was necessary for the United States and Israel to attack Iran. The smoky aftermath of strikes in and near the former U.S. embassy that for decades has been controlled by Iranian forces, and the U.S. military continued to strike Iran's missiles, drones, and defense industrial base. We're finishing the job, and I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. The U.S. and Israeli strikes have led to the administration's public confidence, and we can see the finish line. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. But it is coming. Positive rhetoric has rallied the markets and reduced oil prices. But the reality is more relentless. For the fifth time today, Israelis headed to their bomb shelters after debris from a shot-down Iranian missile crashed into an apartment outside Tel Aviv, leaving behind a dusty baby stroller and rocker. Independent researchers say Iran's daily missile launches, while reduced, are still as high as dozens. Despite 1 month of war, an Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium remains inside Iran, even if it's believed buried under nuclear sites attacked by the U.S. last year. And the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reiterated today that the Strait of Hormuz remains firmly and dominantly under its control. Even modest estimates are that the reduction in oil and liquefied natural gas will stunt many countries' economic growth. International Energy Agency Director Fatih Birol warned today, the loss of oil in April will be was the loss of oil in March. On top of that, you have the LNI and others. So it will come through the inflation. Given all that reality today, President Trump reversed previous statements about the Strait not being a core issue and wrote on Truth Social that Iran asked for a ceasefire and, quote, "We will consider when Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages." Iran's foreign ministry denied there were talks at all, as read out by a state TV news anchor. Trump's statements about Iran's request for a ceasefire are false and baseless. An Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, added in a letter addressed to the American people throughout its millennia of proud history, Iran has outlasted many aggressors. All that remains of them are tarnished names in history. But today, President Trump shrugged off Iran's public threats, telling Reuters, quote, "I'm dealing with a very good chance that we'll make a deal because they don't want to be blasted anymore." He also said those blasts could resume even after the war ended. Quote, "I'll leave," he said, "and I'll take everyone with me. And if we have to, we'll come back to do spot hits." And he told multiple news outlets he was considering withdrawing the U.S. from the NATO alliance because it hasn't supported the war in Iran, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoed on Fox News last night. "We are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose. Or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight?" But back in 2023, then Senator Marco Rubio pushed a bill that was signed by President Biden into law that blocks a president from withdrawing from NATO without 2/3 of the Senate approving INA. So Nick, tell us about the president's address tonight. What exactly do we expect to hear from him? A White House official tells my colleague, Liz Landers, the president is expected to give an operational update on the war and reiterate once again what the administration says has been consistent goals from the beginning of this war: destroying Iran's missile and missile production, its Navy ending support for proxies, and ending its ability to have a nuclear weapon once and for all. As one diplomat told me today, that is the speech that most presidents would have given before the war, because that is essentially a case for the war itself. And as we pointed out in our package, the public emphasis from Rubio, from the president on this, is that the military operation is succeeding in Iran. Iran's missile and drone inventory has definitely been reduced, and its capacity to have in the future been reduced. But the reality is that those missile strikes continue, especially on Israel, as we saw today. It still has what the president calls nuclear dust, the highly enriched uranium inside Iran, and it now has this stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking of the Strait of Hormuz, as you've mentioned there, that effort's behind the scenes to try to reopen that critical lane. What do we know about what's going on? Yes. So in public, we have seen the president say, "Go get your own oil, and we might withdraw from NATO because of what the Europeans haven't given us when it comes to this war." But in reality, in private, the U.S. has been coordinating with European countries and the Gulf for an operation that would secure the strait presumably after the war ends, or at least when a lot of the violence has reduced. And as a reminder, this strait is crucial for the world economy. 20% of the world's oil and natural gas usually flows through here. But right now, it's been largely closed to any tankers other than those that Iran has agreed to let pass. And so, 3 European officials, 1 U.S. official, and 1 regional official tell me tonight that the plan is largely to create a global coalition that would escort tankers or at least defend tankers as they go through the Persian Gulf. The British government today announced summits of 36 countries and senior military officials in the coming days to coordinate that effort. Now, Anna, this will not be easy. There are not that many countries that actually have the naval assets to be able to send to the Gulf to do this. And so these countries tell me that they are certainly hoping that President Trump and the U.S. would remain in the theater after the war is over, especially the Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU that is there right now. They are capable of, for example, splitting up onto tankers. You see the Marine Expeditionary Unit practicing there. They can sail alongside tankers to help the effort. They bring enormous capabilities that could help get these tankers through the Gulf. And alongside those Marines, a U.S. military official confirms to me tonight that plane, the A-10, could help in this effort, but also help in other efforts if the president chose to escalate this war in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, that Strait of Hormuz is going to be the subject of a Security Council resolution tomorrow. What does that say? The idea here is to give international legal authorization for that military effort that I just described. And according to a text that we obtained today, it says, quote, "The resolution authorizes member states acting nationally or through voluntary multinational naval partnerships to use all necessary means, commensurate with the circumstances to sea, queue, transit, passage, and to deter attempts to close, obstruct, or otherwise interfere with international navigation through the Strait of Hormuz." I'm told by one diplomat on the council, even that language, which has been pared back, is an uphill climb to get to the 9 votes they will need for this passage for tomorrow. But if it is, it would give Europe, it would give the Gulf, the legal authorization to have a military operation in the Gulf after the U.S. and Israel essentially declared the war to be over in order to secure the strait moving forward. The world woke to a silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like pressure, the kind that builds quietly, invisibly, until it reaches a breaking point. Across capitals, command centers, and coastlines, that pressure is now the defining reality. Beneath the mountains of Iran, far from the reach of satellites and beyond the immediate impact of airstrikes, something endures. Facilities may be damaged, entrances may be sealed, but the knowledge remains intact. The expertise, the experience, the infrastructure that has taken decades to build cannot simply be erased in weeks. Highly enriched uranium, or what remains of it, is believed to still be inside the country, hidden, dispersed, protected by geography and by design. For years, that material has been at the center of global concern, not just because of what it is, but because of what it represents: potential, power, leverage. And now, despite sustained military pressure, it remains a factor that no strategist can ignore. Airstrikes have hit missile sites, drone facilities, and industrial bases. Explosions have lit up the night sky. Official statements describe success, progress, momentum. But war is not measured only by targets destroyed. It is measured by what remains operational. And in Iran's case, enough remains to continue the fight. In Washington, confidence is projected outward. Public messaging emphasizes gains. The narrative is one of control, of steady advancement toward clear objectives. But behind closed doors, assessments are more cautious. Intelligence briefings acknowledge that while capabilities have been reduced, they have not been eliminated. Iran's military structure is still intact. Its command systems are still functioning. Its ability to respond has been weakened, but not removed. And so, each day, the pattern continues. Missiles launch. Interceptors rise to meet them. Some are stopped, some are not. The sky becomes a battleground of light and sound. In Israel, sirens interrupt daily life with relentless regularity. The rhythm of normal existence has been replaced by the rhythm of warning systems and shelter drills. Families adapt in ways that are both practical and psychological. Children learn the fastest route to safety. Parents learn to read the difference between distant impacts and nearby ones. Conversations pause mid-sentence as alarms sound. Nights are lighter, not from peace, but from the glow of defense systems activating overhead. The damage left behind tells its own story. Buildings with missing walls, streets covered in debris, objects out of place, frozen in moments that were interrupted without warning. A stroller in dust, a chair overturned, a window shattered. These are the details that rarely appear in strategic briefings, but they define the human experience of conflict. Inside Iran, the tone is different but equally intense. Public messaging emphasizes resilience. Strength is framed not just in military terms, but in historical continuity. The narrative draws from centuries of survival, of resistance against external pressure. The idea is clear. This is not a moment of collapse, but a test of endurance. Crowds gather in controlled displays of unity. Flags are raised, speeches are delivered. Media channels repeat a consistent message. The country is not backing down. It is standing firm. Whether driven by belief, necessity, or both, that message resonates across segments of the population. At sea, the situation grows more complex. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage with outsized importance, has become one of the central points of tension. Under normal conditions, a significant portion of the world's oil and natural gas passes through this corridor. Now, its status is uncertain. Traffic has slowed. Some vessels wait. Others reroute at great cost. Insurance rates climb. Shipping companies reassess risk calculations in real time. Each decision carries financial consequences, but also strategic implications. Iran's position in this area gives it leverage that extends far beyond its borders. Control does not need to be absolute to be effective. Even partial disruption creates global effects. Energy markets react quickly. Prices shift in response to perceived risk as much as actual supply changes. Across trading floors and financial centers, screens reflect volatility. Numbers rise, fall, and rise again. Analysts speak in cautious terms. Words like uncertainty, instability, and exposure dominate discussions. Because when energy flows are threatened, the impact reaches into every sector. Fuel costs increase. Transportation expenses follow. Goods become more expensive to move. Supply chains, already strained in many regions, tighten further. Businesses adjust. Consumers feel the difference. Inflation becomes more than an abstract concept. It becomes visible in daily transactions. In Europe, the situation is watched with a mixture of concern and urgency. Energy dependence shapes policy decisions. Public statements emphasize diplomacy and restraint. But behind those statements, contingency plans are being reviewed, updated, and in some cases, activated. Meetings take place behind closed doors. Leaders weigh options that carry significant consequences. Support for military operations is not a simple decision. It involves political risk, economic impact, and public perception. Each factor must be considered, often under time pressure. At the same time, alliances face new tests. Long-standing partnerships are evaluated under current conditions. Expectations are questioned. Contributions are measured not just in words, but in actions. The balance between national interest and collective responsibility becomes more difficult to maintain. Military planners turn their attention to the Gulf. Naval assets begin to reposition. Ships move into areas where presence alone sends a message. The objective is not necessarily to engage, but to deter. To create conditions where escalation is less likely, even as tensions remain high, the concept of escorting tankers through contested waters gains traction. It is not a new idea, but in this context, it carries renewed importance. Ensuring the safe passage of energy resources becomes a priority that extends beyond any single nation. The logistics are complex. Coordination between different navies requires communication systems that function seamlessly. Rules of engagement must be clearly defined. Command structures must be aligned. In an environment where seconds matter, clarity is essential. Air support adds another layer. Aircraft capable of surveillance, interception, and close support are positioned within range. Their presence increases response capability, but also raises stakes. Any incident involving air assets has the potential to escalate rapidly. On land, diplomatic efforts continue alongside military preparations. At the United Nations, discussions intensify. A resolution aimed at authorizing protective measures for shipping is introduced. Its language is carefully constructed to balance authority with restraint. Debate follows. Representatives from different countries present positions shaped by their own interests and perspectives. Some emphasize the need for action to maintain global stability. Others caution against steps that could be interpreted as escalation. Votes are counted, recounted, and anticipated. The outcome remains uncertain. Even if passed, implementation would require further coordination. But the process itself reflects the seriousness of the situation. Back in the United States, attention turns to a scheduled address. The president is expected to speak directly to the nation. Such moments carry weight beyond the words themselves. They set tone. They signal direction. They influence perception. Preparation for the speech involves multiple layers. Policy advisors, military officials, and communication teams contribute to its content. Each sentence is considered for its impact. Each phrase is measured against both domestic and international audiences. The expected themes are clear: progress in military operations, justification for actions taken, clarification of objectives moving forward. But within those themes, nuance matters. The balance between confidence and caution must be maintained, because the reality remains complex. Despite progress, the conflict is ongoing. Despite pressure, the opposing side retains capabilities. Despite planning, outcomes cannot be guaranteed. As the hour approaches, speculation increases. Analysts offer predictions. Commentators discuss possible directions. Public interest rises. In times of uncertainty, people look for clarity, even if it is temporary. As this chapter of the conflict continues to unfold, one truth stands above all: nothing is certain, and everything is connected. What happens in one region now echoes across the entire world, from global markets to everyday lives. This is not just a story of nations and power, but of consequences, decisions, and the fragile balance between escalation and restraint. Behind every headline are real people, real risks, and real outcomes that cannot be undone. History has shown that moments like these define eras, not just by who wins or loses, but by how far the world is pushed before it finds its way back to stability. For now, the situation remains unresolved, the tension remains high, and the next move by any side could shape the future in ways we have yet to fully understand. Until then, the world watches, waits, and hopes that reason finds its place before the cost becomes too great.